All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's broadcast of the Birdzilla.com radio, internet, TV show. We're not sure what to call it yet. I'm Sam Crow. I'm editor of Birdzilla.com, and I'm the one with no hair on my head. Our guest this evening is Joel Greenberg. Joel is something of a Renaissance man. He's a birder, a conservationist, a pigeon lover, and you'll hear more about his love for pigeons in a minute, and he's our blogger extraordinary. So, Joel, we're glad to have you this evening. How are things up in Chicago? Is that where it is? Is it cold up there?
Well, the weather is changed, and it was cooler today. During the fall, when we have these changes in the weather where it gets cooler, it's often what we look for to bring birds down. So we're looking in the fall for cold, uncomfortable, windy weather. The expression is the more horrific the weather, the more terrific the birding. But by all accounts, even though the weather changed and it's cooler, there was no concomitant massive influx of birds. So it's merely cooler than it was without any of birds.
Well, we've got the same saying down here in Texas. The worse the weather, the better the birding. So I guess that's kind of universal.
I guess. I mean, the birding in Texas, I will concede, is better than here. But in the fall, one of the things that I really like, and I do a lot of lake watching, we go to the southern end of Lake Michigan, is the birds are certainly wonderful, but you get to see migration itself. You get to see the birds responding to their genetic code. You see something transcendental in that it's bigger than the birds themselves. And we've seen birds moving south on Lake Michigan. There's a place we go called Miller in Gary, Indiana, which is the farthest south point on Lake Michigan. So when a bird reaches that point, a bird flying south on the lake, it has literally run out of water. So we've seen flocks, and I'm thinking, for example, of a flock of Bonaparte gulls winging their way south, realizing there's no more water, putting on the brakes, sort of like the road runner at the precipice, and they sort of mill around. These particular birds ascended and went overland, but that's really exciting because the lake acts as a funnel, and when the weather is right, and that's northerly, northwesterly winds, that's pretty good birding.
Excellent. Well, since this is our first chance to visit, why don't you tell the people that visit the Birdzilla website and read your blog maybe 2 minutes on what your background is and what you like to do and how you got into birding.
Well, I've been birding. I figured this out. I started birding in November of 1966, so I will be approaching 45 years of bird watching. And birding has been the dominant theme of my life. Every college I went to, with the exception of graduate school and law school, was based on where I could see birds. Was Ted Parker's roommate in Arizona, for example. I went into law to do environmental law. I've worked for agencies involved in natural resource protection. Since 2002, I've been consulting and writing. My magnum opus is a book called A Natural History of the Chicago Region, which looks at how this area has changed in the 300 years since Europeans arrived. My current obsession is a book on passenger pigeons, a bird that once was the continent's most abundant bird, existing no doubt in the billions. And in fact, as late as 1860, there were probably over a billion. By 1900, they were virtually gone in the wild, and on September 1st, 1914, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the last of the species, Martha, died in the Cincinnati Zoo. So we're approaching the centenary of that event. And so my book, as well as this other effort that I've been very involved with called Project Passenger Pigeon, we're hoping to tell people about this event and then use that as a portal into current issues related to extinction, human relationships with nature, and how we can live in a more sustainable way, in ways where we won't have to repeat the story of the passenger pigeon. So those are some of the things that really consume me at this point. Plus, occasionally get out to go birding.
Yeah, we all spend too much time in front of the computer, I think. Not enough time outside. Well, you said a billion birds with a B in 1860, and 40 years later, they're gone.
Yeah.
That's an amazing event, a sad event.
It is. I believe that it's unprecedented in human history for a species of that abundance to be eradicated pretty much solely by human activity. They became a commodity, and with the expansion of the railroad and telegraphs, they were reachable just about wherever they were. And the population of the United States was increasing. It was the cheapest terrestrial protein. And so people just killed them by the tens and hundreds of millions.
Wow. Did they not have any populations down into Mexico or any more remote locations?
Well, the thing is, the birds, their range was from the Atlantic on the east, roughly the Missouri River on the west. There are some extraliminal sightings farther west, and then as far north as Hudson's Bay and as far south as the Gulf states. They migrated, and so one of the things that make them unusual and why they're even more interesting, they had an impact on 19th century American culture because you didn't have to travel to the headwaters of the Yellowstone River to see them as you might bison or geysers. If you lived in Chicago, if you lived in Columbus, you lived in St. Louis, Minneapolis, and earlier in places like small towns like New York City, Philadelphia, Toronto, and Montreal, there would be times of the year, not every year, but often in the spring and fall, where the sky would be black for hours on end. So it was a bird that was present, and it probably, clearly one aspect of its extinction was that they needed a fairly high minimum number to reproduce. And we don't know that really because they were never studied in the wild. People seemed not to have the patience when they encountered the birds. Their first inclination was to shoot them. So, but we know there were a lot, and then there were none. So we try our best to try to figure out why.
All right, so you're working on a book. You have a website?
Well, the website, this Project Passenger Pigeon, the Cincinnati Zoo is one of our partners, and they're making it, and it should be it's taking longer than I would like, but they have other jobs too. So hopefully that'll be ready by November. We're also trying to get a documentary made. For example, Audubon's prose, and he wrote some of the most dramatic descriptions of the birds. We want to turn that into images using computer animation, and we've already made some progress in that direction. So if any of your listeners would like to help us with the film, there's also curriculum being designed, and then hopefully we're trying to get. There was a symphony written about the bird in the 19th century called The Migration of the American Passenger Pigeon that was played once in 1854. We're trying to find symphony orchestras that'll play it. So we have a lot of ideas, and any institution with an outreach capacity, we're hoping, that they'll participate. Could be, a program, could be an exhibit, could be any number of things, since the messages and the themes are pretty broad.
Maybe you could get Steve Martin to record a song in his bluegrass band, since he's an experienced birder now.
That's right. I haven't seen that movie yet. Have you?
I saw it the other night.
Did you like it?
It was quite interesting. More fun for somebody who knew birds and knew many of the birding locations and some of the people that were represented in the movie. But it was okay.
I felt for sure that birders wouldn't like it, but I was wrong. They did. Now, unfortunately, my impression is it hasn't done real well in the box office. But, birders have to acknowledge that what they do is pretty darn nerdy, especially when you're presenting it to a mass audience that is fed a steady diet of material that is salacious and violent. And so I respect the filmmakers for treating the subject with some dignity. And, hopefully there'll be more people now introduced to what we do.
Okay. Well, that's it for this evening. Thank you very much. Hopefully we can do this on a monthly basis. And people that read your blog will get to learn a little bit more about you and understand what you're all about and what your next program is going to be. Sounds like you're going to be busy for a long time, though, with that passenger pigeon program.
Well, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll be posting a new blog tonight or tomorrow. Thank you very much, Sam.
Very good. You have a good evening. Thanks.
Okay.